So I'm sure everyone who spends time on social media will have seen that Ricky Gervais has released a brand new special on Netflix, which was held off for a very, very long time because there were rumors that it was going to be incredibly transphobic. And like all good rumors, it was incredibly true. It was so obviously going to be true to anybody who knows that basically the system works like this: is you find some kind of minority, right, who will get angry when when you belittle them, right? You attack that minority through whatever kind of vehicle that you have to generate clicks or money or whatever. Like if you're the media, you'll do this culture war stuff, or if you're a comedian, you'll just make jokes about them that are pretty pretty nasty jokes that you're doing, being pretty cruel, right? Because they will have some backlash, and suddenly you can start screaming about cancel culture, and suddenly you have this kind of plinth with which to be able to opine about the death of comedy or the scourge of cancel culture, and you can ride that discourse train basically forever. How do you think Rosie Duffield has a media career? Because she just run on being a transphobe forever. So it's very, very clear that this was going to happen. He was going to say a bunch of transphobic shit. There was going to be a backlash. Cue all the articles from Spiked, from The Times, from The Spectator going, but he is just showing up a mirror to the absurdity of the radical trans activists, rather than actually looking into the humour at all. Because really, right, I don't have a problem with jokes about trans people, right? There are loads of funny things about being trans. Unfortunately, that's not the jokes they try. They don't make jokes about the trans experience. They don't make jokes about about trans people. They make jokes at the expense of trans people for mockery purposes. Nothing's constructive. Nothing's smart or funny or interesting or or even poignant. Anything. It's just trans people exist. Isn't it funny that they exist? Now that's not particularly smart comedy, right? And as Ricky Gervais said, the only offensive comedy that he finds is jokes that are poorly constructed, poorly delivered, and just not funny at the end of the day. And that is an apt description of the kind of things that he was doing. So let's have a look at a particular example of a piece of a joke, right, in incredibly inverted commas, that it was included in Ricky's stand-up. Let's have a look. It's called "The New Women." I have muted this tab. There we go.
Oh, the old-fashioned women. Oh, God. You know, the ones with wombs. Oh. Those fucking dinosaurs. Oh. No, I love the new women. I know the
Dinosaurs. Really do spend too much time on Twitter, don't you, Ricky?
new women. They're great, aren't they? You know, the new ones we've been seeing lately. The ones with beards and cocks. They're as good as...
What's the joke? Chat? YouTube comments? What was the joke that he just told there? Trans women exist and have penises. Well done, you identified the existence of a group of people, Ricky. That's not a joke. How is that? What was the punchline there? Yeah, far too challenging.
They're as good as gold. I love them. No, it's the old-fashioned with
But people are laughing at what's funny. I don't get what the joke is, right? I don't think that's an offensive joke. I don't think anything's offensive about that. As a trans person, you're saying trans women exist and they have penises, right? Yes, I do. I exist and I don't have a penis, right? Fucking no shit, Sherlock. Well done. You've figured it out. You've the magic formula has been cracked here, right? But that doesn't make it a joke. There's no punchline here.
And now the old-fashioned, they go like, oh, they want to use our toilets. Why shouldn't they use your toilets? For ladies. They are ladies. Look at their pronouns.
Like, that's not a joke either. That's just you saying the word pronouns. What's the punchline? It's not a joke. Why are they laughing? It's just fucking Roy Chubby Brown for millennials. That's what Ricky Gervais is. They literally, it's just like, do you see they have these pronouns now? Audience completely they go into hysterics of after. Oh my god, he said the word pronouns. It's so funny. Oh, I bet he identifies an attack helicopter. Oh, he's such a card. This Ricky is like. What's the joke? Is it just the word pronoun supposed to be funny? Like what? It's just a linguistic tool, right?
What about this person isn't a lady? Well, his penis.
I mean, No, because that's not how gender works. Again, that's not a joke. That's just you saying you you don't think trans women are women because of a body part that it's never even meant to enter the conversation unless you're having sexual intercourse with someone, right?
Her penis, you fucking bigot.
Like, yes, she's a woman. She uses she/her pronouns. Like, it's her penis. Again, it's just this illusion at a joke that a lot of rightoids do, or an illusion at like kind of like the illusion of outrage, where they go, "Have you seen this thing that happens?" or "Have you seen this thing that happens?" and they just describe the thing and expect that to be a joke, right? They expect that to be a joke or something outrageous, and then the audience is supposed to kind of implant onto them whether like the joke or the outrage, rather than actually constructing something with a setup and punchline. It's just trans women have penises. Oh, so funny, hilarious joke. Oh, my sides. That's not a joke. That's just you saying the word pronouns. Like,
What if he rapes me? What if she rapes you?
like this is the only actual joke, right? In this whole skit, this minute-long skit here, this is the only actual joke that he's made. And I'm gonna have to deconstruct this because it's really difficult to spot because, is Ricky Gervais. He's not exactly a smart person, right? Like, the joke apparently here is that he's trying to make it think as though people who are in favor of trans rights, right, care more about you gendering someone correctly than rape. Now, I think that's a pretty nasty thing to say to somebody. I think that's a nasty implication that the idea that trans people don't care whether people are raped, because, most people who are in favor of trans rights are also feminists. Like, we don't like, we think rape is bad. But just this isn't even the idea of someone actually being raped. There's just the idea that someone might rape someone because they're a trans woman, which there's just no evidence to suggest that's the case, right? I understand that, like, this joke is so bad, I literally have to break it down to, like, its bare constituent components for people to understand why it's even a joke, right? But it's literally just, the whole of this skit is just, trans people exist with penises, they have pronouns, and you should gender them correctly. There's no joke. There's nothing here. There's nothing. People are just fucking 408,000 likes on TikTok. Apparently, people think this shit's funny. Are they fucking Are they like literally a paramecium? They have the brain capacity of a single-celled organism. Like, where was what's funny? This is literally just like 2015 era memes about attack helicopters, but in 2022 in like $1 million stand-up special. What? There's nothing he said here apart from like the kind of ephemeral waft at a joke at the end is a joke. Like, there's nothing. There's just literal nothing, right? Like, obviously he did the thing where he was talking about previously with the clip that was circling the Netflix post on Twitter about him being an atheist. I'm like, well, never heard about Ricky Gervais being an atheist before. That's a new one. It's not like he did the incredibly cringe thing where he had what, a microphone stand as a cross and then atheist written in blood across him. The edgy boy thing that he did there, which was definitely not incredibly cringe and fedora. This man is literally like the fedora personified, just like 100% soy jack. He really is. Don't really want to watch many more of this, to be honest, just in case I get like copyright cucked or whatever. But even so, like, this is the kind of level of intellect that you're getting here, and then all of the commentary at fucking falling themselves over. Oh, 5 stars, incredible comedy. Look how far he's grown. Oh, really showed like trans people, what for with his incredibly biting critique. I'm like, there was no critique, there was no comedy, there was no joke. This is nothing. This is just, I mean, what it really is just the implication that all trans women are rapists, or at the very least potential rapists, which is, first of all, nonsensical. Like, Ricky, you do know what estrogen does to a penis, right? And second of all, is just just incredibly fucking cruel, and in a climate in which trans people are being increasingly attacked by people who want to take away our rights, want to take away our ability to be able to function in society, take away our healthcare, right? And then you're going, well, on the one hand, there's this kind of this huge media campaign to try and remove the rights of trans people. But on the other hand, have you considered that they might be rapists and also it's funny that they have penises? Like, is that really constructive? I don't really think it is. Or is it funny? Or is it's not even insightful? Like, what did he gain from that? There's a really good hard drive article, like a parody article. They were just like, Ricky Gervais starves to death after a fire takes out all low hanging fruit, which I think is a good joke because that's all it is. It is all just low hanging fruit, and then you get, well, I don't really care about being offensive because it's just a joke, which takes me back to the whole like the Stuart Lee bit where he talks about how on Top Gear it's just a joke, and then he just goes on and says, well, I really wish people did, Richard Hammond did die in that car crash, but don't worry, it's just a joke, like on Top Gear. Like, there's not a real defense. It's just a joke. It doesn't make it any less. Doesn't decrease the way in which he contributes to a culture that leads to the way in which that harms trans people, right? So he's gained nothing because there's no actual like. He's made some like incredibly fucking dumb people. Like if this is, I saw someone on Facebook say that this was comedy for people with brains. I'm like, if this is comedy for people with brains, then Roy Chubby Brown is comedy for people in Mensa, right? There's nothing intellectual to any of this comedy here. Nothing. It's just incredibly cheap laughs. Just saying, "Oh, minority exists," as if that's like an actual joke, right? No actual jokes were made in the course of any of this, right? The thing is that there are plenty of funny jokes that you could make about Islam. I hate to keep going back to Stuart Lee, but he is the best comedian in the world, or 41st best, I guess. But even so, like, there are plenty of good jokes that Stuart Lee makes about Islam, but people don't want to hear good jokes about Islam. They want to hear jokes to make fun of their hats because people are fucking idiots, right? I hate to be a fucking comedy snob and looking down on the unwashed masses, right? But I'm like, there are plenty of popular comedians who are funny to everybody, regardless of socioeconomic background or whatever, or regardless of whichever minority group might belong to, who find plenty of things funny. Like there's plenty of comedy there that doesn't involve treating a minority like a punching bag. Exactly, and the Stuart Lee bit about Islam is a perfect example, right? And someone on Twitter, right? Someone on Twitter was saying to me, "What's the difference between if you?" They don't even what's the difference. Like, if you think that Ricky Gervais is offensive, then you need to see Jimmy Carr because Jimmy Carr is way more offensive than Ricky Gervais. And I was like, well, actually, if you look at the scale of offense, yes, I would probably say so. In the Jimmy Carr is more offensive than Ricky Gervais, right? The thing is that when you have boldly, outwardly offensive comedy that is just taking fucked up situations and turning them into some like a morbid joke, right? No one gets any ideas from that. It's the key difference, right? So I was watching a bunch of in preparation for this segment. I was watching a routine from Jimmy Carr. It was literally his kind of his jokes that he made, the outrageous ones, right? I was watching a compilation of these, and the kind of subjects that he brought up, things like CSA, things like cancer, and all this kind of incredibly fucked up shit, right? When you go to that level, Joseph Fritzl, like that's the kind of things he was making jokes about, like poor taste jokes or whatever, but jokes about things that there is just kind of a universal society-wide understanding that these things are bad, right? No one in the room during Jimmy Carr's stand-up routine, where he made fun of the girl who was abused by Joseph Fritzl, and none of that particular routine, there were people in the audience having their preconceived biases about Joseph Fritzl being lionized by what he was saying there. No one's saying, oh, actually, locking your daughter in a room for 18 years and abusing her is good and is all good and fine. No one was thinking that in that stand-up. When you do things that are like near the knuckle, like offensive comedy, things that really, really, is fucked up in nature, making jokes about, CSA, right? There's no one in the audience who thinks, well, actually, CSA is good, and this comic has affirmed to me that it's okay for me to think CSA is good because he's joked about it. No one's saying anything like that. It's so far beyond the realms of quote-unquote acceptability that it becomes, in essence, completely neutered, because no one realizes it's anything other than a joke. And there's no political message to be made. There's no like underlying ulterior motive. It's just this is offensive, and it's offensive for the sake of being offensive because it just crosses every possible societal like boundary of what we consider to be acceptable, and we accept that. And it as I said, it in some way completely defangs and detooths the power of the joke because it's just so outlandish, so far beyond the realm of acceptability. But that's not the case with things like Dave Chappelle and things like Ricky Gervais, right? Obviously, Ricky Gervais is much worse because at least Dave Chappelle tried to make a joke. Ricky Gervais was just like, don't trans people exist? Isn't that funny? Let's mock them for a bit. The issue is there are plenty of people in the audience who do think that trans people are subhuman, who do think that we should be dead, who do think all our healthcare should be taken away, who do think that we shouldn't have access to be able to change the gender on our birth certificates, who do think that we shouldn't have access to any kind of medical intervention, right? There are plenty of people, huge swathes of people actually, who think that we should be completely removed from society. Now, that's not the case with something like child sexual assault or Joseph Fritzl. No one thinks that they're okay. But by making those jokes in which he is making light of the fact that there's this huge campaign of animosity towards trans people and then using that for cheap jokes at our expense, that does real material harm. Now, that's the big difference between Jimmy Carr and between Ricky Gervais, and why one is bad and one's just offensive, right? Do you see what? Do people get what I'm saying out here, right? Like, there's a really good and just to finish off, I'm just going to play a clip that I post on Twitter from ContraPoints talking about the last time Ricky Gervais talked about trans people and why it is that it's not sufficient to say this is offensive, this isn't offensive, this is good comedy, this is bad comedy. We need to talk about the material harm and what makes constructing a good joke good. Like, there's another clip. I'm going to play a clip from a ContraPoints video, but it's a clip from that same video that I'm not going to post, where she essentially says that, well, this is what's funny about being trans is just this kind of complete incongruence of what people expect. And so there's this bit where a video online of Gigi Gorgeous like coming on the wall at a sperm bank because she wants to essentially have kids. So has to stop hormones, then bust a huge nut in this fucking sperm bank as a like incredibly dainty trans woman. And that's a funny thing to talk about, right? That's an amusing part of the trans experience, which, Ricky Gervais just doesn't fucking understand because he doesn't live it. He doesn't understand anything about what's actually funny, right? So I'm going to play a little clip from the same video that just shows why what Ricky Gervais is saying doesn't really kind of hold much actual water. Let's have a watch.
Had just begun, and already the most 2016 possible thing was happening. Ricky Gervais, an irreverent, bad boy, atheist comedian, was ranting on Twitter for days and days about how stupid it is that people are offended by things. This is pretty standard for Ricky Gervais, a man whose personal branding screams, "I don't care about your feelings. I know what it's like to be persecuted for my beliefs."
Hey, look, it's just so soy. It's just like the most soy thing you've ever seen. It's just, hey, thank you for the follow, Emma Barnes, much appreciated. It's just like the most fucking soy jack thing you've ever seen. Oh, look at me. I'm an atheist. I'm a persecuted minority. Oh, can't be an atheist in the United States. Oh, look how edgy boy I am. It's just it's just the most. It's like Fedora personified.
I'm too much of a badass rebel to care what minorities think. But in January 2016, Ricky Gervais was having an extra badass, irreverent, not caring about your feelings kind of month. Why? Because he'd just hosted the Golden Globes and upset a bunch of people by telling jokes about old Tran Ma Caitlyn Jenner.
But as I say, I'm going to be nice tonight. I've changed. Not as much as Bruce Jenner, obviously.
That's cutting-edge material there, Rick. Very irreverent, very rebellious, very bad boy atheist. Ooh. I mean, I do wish he wouldn't dead name trans people on stage, but honestly, the joke wasn't even as transphobic as a lot of the stuff I've come to just expect from comics. Still,
And she's right. It's not. If he'd have just said Caitlyn Jenner rather than Bruce Jenner, that would have been funny. I would genuinely jokes like, trans people have to go through a lot of changes. So comparing the change in your life to the incredibly life-altering transition of being a trans person, that's a reasonable joke. There's a setup and there's a punchline, right? That's a well-constructed actual joke, involves trans people and doesn't mock trans people specifically. Nothing wrong with that, right?
I'm sure Twitter had a thing or two to say about it, and Ricky spent the rest of the month tweeting about how offending people is good, actually, and he definitely doesn't care that people were offended. But clearly, Twitter got to him, because 2 years later, he opened his Netflix special with a 13-minute bit rehashing the incident and doing a series of even more, irreverent jokes.
Because I've always identified as a chimp, right? Well, I am a chimp. If I say I'm a chimp, I am a chimp. Pre-op. But, and don't ever dead name me. Don't ever call me Ricky Gervais again. From now on, you call me Bobo.
Does he also identify as an attack helicopter? Does he realize he's doing a meme from 2014 on stage in a $20 million comedy special? My issue with this...
Literally, he's getting paid to just do, like, the most lowest common denominator possible comment about trans people. There's nothing funny about that. And the audience, they fucking lap it up, going, oh, attack helicopter chimp. Extremely, very, very amusing, Ricky. Well done. Cutting edge of the comedy scene here. Literally, he might as well have got on stage and go, here come that boy. Oh shit, what up? Like, that's the level of humour that we're engaging with here.
joke is that apart from being extremely
I've got more laughs there than there are genders. I'm incredibly sophisticated comedian, me, Ricky Gervais.
passe and overdone, it also doesn't make sense unless you ignorantly believe that trans women are delusional men. And even then, it's just not very funny. But am I offended by the joke? Well, I think it's ignorant, misinformed, unoriginal, and not very funny. And as a great comedian named Ricky Gervais once said, to me, an offensive joke is one that's lame, badly delivered, and not funny enough. So by that measure, yes, I'd say this I identify as a chimp bit is pretty offensive.
And she's right. It's just incredibly low level, lowest common denominator garbage for idiots who don't know what the fuck don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I've never had good comedy said to them in their life, right? And again, it's just a joke. But again, just like on Top Game, as far as I'm like, that's what it's incredibly low hanging fruit, right? And what's even funnier is that he said, "Oh well, we have everything. You know, we can't ban free speech. What will happen to comedy?" The Mary Sue, like a comedic, like online kind of article hub. What would you call one of those things? I don't even know. Just a website, right? To run articles. Ran an article about how this was just not nonsense comedy, just specifically to mock trans people because he knew it would get a backlash. Again, none of this is. I don't think any of this is particularly ideological. He just knows full well he can get so much online notoriety, get all the engagement in the world by going, haha, lol, trans people, and they're waiting for the people who are upset by it to then talk about it on the internet, create loads of drama, become Twitter's main character for a week or whatever. Because Dave Chappelle proved the formula works. Say something incredibly nasty, get cancelled for it, reap the rewards in terms of engagement. It's a really simple formula, right? But then Mary Sue wrote an article about this, and the MCA take down the article for a picture that used of him. There's never been about freedom of speech or freedom of association. As soon as it triggered him, suddenly he's calling out the DMCA police on people. A little bit hypocritical there, Ricky. But even so, it's just frustrating that so many people are just fawning over it, right? But like, why? It's just not funny. Why do people find this funny? I guess secretly, people just like laughing at minorities. It's the same, it's just Roy Chubby Brown all over again, but this time for people who think that they're discerning, right? They think that they've come there to see an intellectual, titan come and create incredibly well-constructed comedy at them, when it's literally just a man standing up there calling himself an attack helicopter. And I don't know about anybody, I don't know about you, but I don't think that's particularly funny. Trans women exist, lol, is literally just something that Roy Chubby Brown would have said, something that Jim Davidson would have said. Like, you're goobering. Like, you're trying to tell me that you're an intellectual and you're laughing at Roy Chubby Brown. And come on, like, it's just not funny. It's not funny. But again, I'll probably title this segment that there's a difference between what's the difference between Jimmy Carr and Ricky Gervais, and the difference is that Ricky Gervais is continuing to exacerbate a toxic culture that makes life for trans people materially worse. And Jimmy Carr doesn't. It's as simple as that. That's why brazenly offensive jokes I do not have any problem with, and targeted jokes at a systemically disenfranchised minority which will get worse because of it is bad, because there's negative utility to that. And I don't know about anybody else, but the well-being of trans people in society is more important to me than whether or not Ricky Gervais's baying mob of stupid fans get a cheap laugh out of their Netflix comedy special. I don't know anybody else, but I think that's reasonable as a stance based on total utility, right? Case closed? I think so. Anyway, if you're watching this on future YouTube viewers, please consider liking and subscribing, or angry typing in the comments about how I'm just a triggered PC libcuck troon who hates being talked down to and hates freedom of speech. Please leave those comments in the comment section. All it does is help the video's engagement. Please leave lots of angry comments, future YouTube viewers, and also click like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and click my name, and click the bell because it will notify you when I release new videos, and when I also go live. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time, or probably not if you're just coming here to dunk on me for being trans, but, cheers.